All right. Thanks, everybody. I will hand it over to you, Alderwoman, to kick us off.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for coming. It's Alderwoman Lenny Manaa-Hoppenworth of the 48th Ward, and today we are glad to present to you the Refuge Island projects on Broadway and Ridge in Edgewater. First, a few housekeeping. We have values and community agreements that we share every event. And we invite you to be a part of this community through empowerment, anti-racism, community service, and joy. And we agree to be present, to be compassionate, to be generous, and to be brave, knowing that this isn't the only time that we could come together and ask questions and be together. Here's our agenda today, including our approach to pedestrian safety, what we're doing today with the Refuge Island on Broadway and Ridge, upcoming events, and then we'll close it off with Q&A. When we organize our streets with clear spaces for pedestrians, vehicles, and cyclists, everyone is safer. This is our approach to pedestrian safety. And our goals are in line with the city's commitment for a decade now towards Vision Zero, which is to eliminate traffic fatalities. We are proud in Edgewater and Uptown in the 48th Ward to have 3 straight years of no traffic fatalities in the 48th Ward, and we want to keep that going. We also want to keep cyclists off of Sheridan Road sidewalks, and we want to mitigate dangerous vehicle behavior across Edgewater and Uptown and all throughout the Chicagoland area. And we do this by organizing our streets and making sure that we are backing it up with enforcements through cameras, through infrastructure improvements, and through working with CPD to make sure that people are following the law of the land. Sorry about the cops in the background, but we are enforcing our laws right now as we speak. And I want to, before I kick it off to the Department of Transportation, say that this project is a project that has been something that the community has been asking for at least 10 years now, because we know that Broadway is a major road. It's a spine through Edgewater, and Uptown, it's steps away from our Red Line and many bus transit. Um, uh, Bus lanes. So we know that we want Broadway to be safe for our kids to cross over from Sun High School to the Broadway Armory. And we have older adults that are in this area who don't own cars and they like to walk around. We want it to be safe in every single intersection. And we're very glad to be bringing this project to you and to present to you today. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Len Eloise, our CDOT from our CDOT Commissioner's Office, to introduce his team and to tell us more about this project. Thank you, Len.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Well, as you know, and as you said, this project's been in the works for about 10 years. We finally have it off the ground after a very long and arduous process between the Department of Water Management and also our friends at IDOT. We have to play volleyball with our design. So we have to throw it to them, they approve it, or they tell us we have to make revisions, they send it back to us, then we have to kick it back. So it's been a very long process. But finally, we have shovels in the ground. Obviously, we have more than just shovels in the ground. We have a couple of them that have already been almost substantially complete. Um, and I will say this, that we have 3 locations that we're going to have the pedestrian refuge islands at. 2 of those locations will also have rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And for those of you that don't know what those are, rectangular rapid flashing beacon is the pedestrian crossing signal. So You walk up to a handicap ramp, and you press the button, and flashing lights go off, indicating and telling vehicles and motorists to stop because someone's coming through. And those are going into two of the locations. Um, and I can see on our deck here that there 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 is the names of some of my guys and the location should be switched. But I just noticed that. Sorry. Um, so anyway, I'll let Carl from my team come in. And Carl is our traffic engineer, and he can better explain what a pedestrian refuge island does, much better than I can. I know it keeps pedestrians safe. And we're going to get people across Broadway. And the point, as everybody knows, is to get people across Broadway quicker, safer, and more efficiently. So, with that said, I kick it over to my cohort, Carl.
Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, so as Lynn touched on, I'm Carl Schwarzer. I'm acting director of the traffic design section at CDOT Project Development. Wanted to start with just an overview of what a pedestrian refuge island is and what the benefits of it are. So first of all, on the bottom of this image, you can kind of see some schematic images of what these look like. Now, the benefits are it makes it easier to find a gap in traffic when crossing a two-way street. And one thing you can think about here is since you can stop in the middle of the road and you have that refuge space, when you start your crossing process, you really only have to be concerned about cars in one direction. So as you're stepping off the curb, you're just going to look one direction in the direction that the cars are coming. You cross to the median, and then you can stop, you can gather yourself, and then you can check the other direction, just making it a lot easier to cross that street. You don't have to wait for a gap in both directions at the same time. So, along with that, this also has the benefit of making the crosswalk much more visible for drivers as well. So, having that raised element in the street obviously is a little bit of an indicator that there's going to be a crossing there, and it also allows us to put pedestrian crossing signs in the median itself. So now instead of just having pedestrian crossing signs on the outside of the intersection, they're also in the median. Again, just putting those visual indicators out there that there's a crosswalk at this location. Additionally, for drivers, just having that raised element in the middle of the roadway does have a traffic calming effect. Just it kind of pinches down the roadway, it creates a physical barrier, and cars tend to slow down when they go next to that. Now, when we select a location for a pedestrian refuge island, there are a number of factors that have to be considered when we're checking feasibility and become a consideration in the actual design of the median island itself. So, one important item that's already been touched on here is that Broadway is state jurisdiction. So, the Illinois DOT actually has jurisdiction over Broadway. That actually obligates us to follow some IDOT standards that we would not have to follow on uh, streets that are not part of the Illinois highway system. And that just ultimately kind of adds that complication of another review agency and some back and forth that Lynn had touched on. Another important factor to consider is actually the cross section of the street or the lane alignments and widths that are out there. And one item to consider on Broadway is that there is a striped median on Broadway, but there is a minimum width that is necessary to be considered a refuge island. Something that is too narrow doesn't give you that ability to stop and rest in the middle. So we have to actually widen that median a little bit at these locations on Broadway where these are going in. Another factor is just a note on, when you look at this image on the bottom left, if there happened to be a driveway near the intersection, putting in these islands could make it so that an existing full access driveway that you can make all movements from could become a right in, right out. I don't believe that was a factor in the Broadway design, but just to note that that is the type of thing that becomes a consideration when we're doing a refuge island design. You can go to the next slide. All right, next up, we have some information about rectangular rapid flashing beacons. as Lynn noted, these serve to just be a kind of an erratic flashing light that just really catches the eye of drivers. So, pedestrians have a push button that when you're ready to cross at these locations, it activates those flashers. That doesn't, the way the Illinois Vehicle Code works in the state of Illinois, cars are required to stop for pedestrians and crosswalks in all locations. Obviously, we've all experienced situations where on a busy road like Broadway, cars don't tend to necessarily stop for a pedestrian that's waiting. These flashers just serve to really indicate that there is a pedestrian waiting to cross here, calls the attention to the driver, and encourages them to stop for that crosswalk. These newer versions of the RRFBs, as we call them, also have accessible pedestrian system features, which means there's actually audible tones with this. So blind or low vision pedestrians are actually going to have auditory indications about the status of their crossing. It'll tell them when the flashers are going, it'll tell them when the flashers are stopped, and it'll just better indicate that, yes, the flashers are going right now, and it's a good time to cross. Not sure if my camera's going a little wonky on your end. Apologies about that. Not sure what that's for. Uh, Much like the refuge island, there are some design considerations that we have to work on. Sorry, folks. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off. So when it comes to these RRFB locations, much like the islands, street jurisdiction matters. IDOT has their own rules and regulations about these RRFBs that are a little different than where CDOT would tend to use them. And one of the big critical factors is going to be that street cross section or the number of lanes again. I've put a chart in the bottom right corner here that's just kind of an example of kind of our baseline starting point on these. An important thing to note here is when you look at that number of lanes columns and median present column, you're going to see if there's more than one lane in each direction or ultimately more than two lanes without a median, we're going to say an RRFB is not possible. So saying it another way, if there's two lanes in each direction, a median is required. So that was part of the conversation on these Broadway locations when it came to if any of them would warrant RRFBs. So if you go ahead and go to the next slide, I have here just an example. It's from Irving Park Road in Hoyne, not so far from the area we're at here, but I just pulled this image as like a really good example of what this refuge island and RRFB combination looks like. So again, you have the refuge island that's kind of on the left side of the big image. And then there are the RRFB units. So I kind of zoomed in so you can kind of see those flashers sitting there. So if you imagine that you're a pedestrian at the very right side of the image, when you're about to step into the street, you only have to be looking towards the camera to handle the vehicles that are traveling away from the camera in this image. If you arrive at this location, you'll push the push button. The flashers will begin their erratic flashing pattern. You're only going to be looking at cars in one direction, and you can more comfortably cross to that median. The median is nice and wide. You're protected while you're in there. There's even a raised element on the intersection side of this. So both, in both directions, there is a concrete curb between you and traffic. And then again, as you're in the refuge, you now only have to look at the cameras on the the vehicles on the far side of this image and only check in one direction. Again, with the protection of the flashers, it should be a much more comfortable crossing experience. So that's it for the quick overview here. And from here, I think we're going to turn it over to a couple of specific updates on these three Broadway locations. So I think you can go to the next slide. And either Alex or Stan, I'm not sure who's going to handle this one.
I think this one is Stan.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Stan. I'll be watching over the construction of these pedestrian refuge island. So we're sort of still in the preliminary phase. Work hasn't started here. Contractor is working on their permits at this point. As kind of mentioned, jurisdiction belongs to IDOT, so we're still kind of waiting for the green light for them when we can start. But if all goes well, we have permits in hand and everything kind of lines up. The contractor's looking to start at the later half of June, and they're expected to with everything with the concrete work, the asphalt, the signage, and the striping, like the pavement markings. It should take them through July. So by the end of July, we should all be wrapped up here. And of course, this is weather dependent, but with factoring some of those bad weather days, end of July is the target. And that's kind of written on here. It's sort of like um, a conveyor belt, so to speak, where first is one crew comes in and removes the existing pavement, sets up the traffic control for pedestrians as well. We're going to divert them to the southern half of the intersection so they can cross there. And then for any cars or anything, that'll be kind of labeled that there's an obstruction. And after that, framing for the concrete pour, cure time of the concrete. After that, you can expect some asphalt restoration for anything that was disturbed around the asphalt area. And then the new pavement markings and signage will go up afterwards at the final phase. And then something to note here, during construction, vehicle traffic in either direction might be reduced to one lane for staging purposes for, like the concrete truck or some of those heavy equipment machinery that just has to be right up against the work zone. Also, some no parking areas might, be in the vicinity of the construction zone to allow for a flow of traffic and staging. But that's about all I have for now. The schedule is a little broad, as like I said, because not everything is set yet. But that's all I can provide at this time.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you.
Alex, you're up, bud.
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I am a consultant for the city. We're working on both the Hood and Rosedale locations. Both these locations are under construction. So Broadway Hood, this is one of the RRFB locations. So like I said, we talked about this has started. So concrete restoration is currently ongoing. Should be completed by the end of this week. Outside of the areas adjacent to the foundations. So new foundations are going in to erect the RRFB systems on. So the areas around those foundations will remain empty until the foundations have been installed. And then once foundations have been installed, concrete restoration will be done and kind of looking at sometime mid to late June for all of that. And then as we talked about, then final restoration comes in. So asphalt, striping, final signage, and RFB installation. So that's projected sometime middle to late July for contract completion at Hood. Rosedale, pretty similar. Like we talked about, RFB location here also. Concrete restoration here is currently complete, other than the areas around the proposed foundations. Those foundations plan to be started sometime next week, probably sometime middle June, similar, to be finished with foundation and concrete restoration here, and then final restoration, which would include asphalt, pavement markings, signage, completed in somewhere mid to late July for this location also.
All right.
Thank
So,
you, Alex.
yeah, I think I can go ahead and jump in on this next one. One more item we did want to preview here today is actually a paint and post island that's coming to Hollywood and Ridge. This is similarly a long-standing proposal that's kind of been out there for a long time, and it finally is fully ready to go this year. So on this image, since we're kind of switching from those other Broadway locations to this, we just have some images here to help locate you in space. We're going to be talking about the Hollywood and Ridge intersection that you can see in the big inset on the right. So you can go ahead and go to the next image. So at this location, we are also pursuing a median island In this case, this is also an IDOT route and has a few different factors going on here, which resulted in IDOT asking that this be a paint and post island initially, as somewhat of a pilot project before this gets installed in concrete in the future. So I just want to flag that this is kind of on the south leg, if you will, of Ridge at Hollywood. So just kind of looking at this image on the left, you can see that on Hollywood, there's kind of double lefts that take you to the north. On Ridge, from the right side of the image coming to the, excuse me, the left side coming to the right, that would be your southbound Ridge that consists of one left turn lane and one through lane. This island that we're proposing is going to kind of shadow that left turn lane on Ridge. So you have one through lane on Ridge that exists today. That one through lane on Ridge would continue along this median, whereas in the existing condition, it kind of fans out into two lanes immediately. So this refuge island kind of better organizes that vehicular traffic as they come through the intersection. They can no longer immediately fan out into two lanes. And again, it just kind of simplifies that pedestrian crossing. As I mentioned, this is going to be paint and post instead of a concrete curb as shown on the other project. There's just an image here in the bottom left showing what a paint and post installation looks like. Typically consists of a colored surface on the asphalt and then some flexible delineators that are up there. So obviously this is not nearly as robust as full concrete, but this, the intent here is to proceed with concrete at this location in the future, kind of following the pilot time period that IDOT requested at this location. And I think for the construction updates, I think we're going to turn this back over to the ward staff.
So much. Thanks, CDOT. Just an announcement for construction updates across the 48th Ward. You can go to the 48thward.org/news and sign up for our newsletter, and you'll get our email in your inbox every Thursday morning. We have a couple upcoming events. We have many, many events throughout the year. This week we have 5 at least. Today we have 2. There's one on Wednesday. This is about the Sheridan resurfacing between Foster and Montrose that's going on between the 48th and the 46th Ward. It's an info session starting at 6 o'clock and it's virtual. The other one is on Thursday. It's May 28th at 6:30, and this will be an in-person meeting at Emmanuel Congregation about the Fernhill development on Sheridan Road. So at this time, we would love to open it up for Q&A, and I want to say once again, thank you so much for being here. I will open up the floor. Perhaps raise your hand or use the raise your hand function, or